All right, well, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to everyone that's here this evening. Thank you so much for joining us in May. I'm sure your family has nothing else going on, but we're really excited to be here talking with you today about kindergarten. My name's Emily Herman. I am the curriculum director here in Lakota, kindergarten through sixth grade. And with me tonight is Missy Alexander. She is the principal at Liberty Early Childhood School. And we are both going to talk with you tonight about preparing your child for kindergarten, and then also give you a little glimpse at what those first few days of kindergarten look like in the building. So just a couple tips for tonight. We are going to use the question and answer feature if you have any questions. And so you can just type your questions in. Mrs. Alexander and I will be monitoring those and typing back answers. We will also try to answer some as we go, and at the end, verbally answer some of the questions. Don't use the raise hand feature because we are monitoring the question and answer, so we won't see that part of it. And then if you have any specific questions about your child or for your family, you can email those to me at emily.herman@lakotaonline.com. All right, so this webinar is for all children entering kindergarten. And this webinar will also be video recorded. So we're recording tonight, and it will be shared to the website as well. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is getting ready for kindergarten. And this information actually comes from the state of Ohio's website. There's a link on the slides here, and these slides will also be shared with you through our Lakota online website. But some of those things to think about as we enter summer and you're thinking about your child starting kindergarten is, are they able to separate from you without anxiety, right? So the beginning of the year, everybody has a little bit of butterflies. That's okay. We're used to that. But sometimes it's really hard for children that have spent most of their time with a parent to separate and start school. So if your child is one that might cry for extended periods when they're not by your side, you'll want to practice having maybe them stay with a babysitter for a little bit of time, or going to some activities where they're encouraged to go and listen to another adult read a book. Just working on that, feeling comfortable away from mom or dad or whoever that safe person is for them. Another thing that we work on that is important for kindergarten, right, is having self-control. So we understand they're 5, and so that is something that they're all working on learning. But learning to keep their hands to themselves, sharing and taking turns, cooperating with others, and using classroom supplies appropriately. So just giving them some opportunities to play with others, listen to others. The library is always a great place, story time, practicing some of those skills that they'll need when they get to kindergarten. Again, following directions from other adults other than the primary caregivers is good practice, where they're going to be entering a classroom. So if your child was doing preschool, they have lots of practice with this. But if not, there might be something that, again, you want to seek out opportunities where they're listening and following directions from other adults. We want to practice some self-independence. So letting children go, making sure they can use the restroom on their own when they get to kindergarten. That's what they'll be doing. So it's always a good thing to practice. Making sure they can zip and button their coats, starting to work on tying shoes. That's usually one that comes a little later, but it's always good to start practicing. And just demonstrating some of those independent skills. And then along with tying shoes is working those little fingers and getting those muscles strong so that they're ready to do things in school, like using scissors to cut paper, holding and using a pencil, crayon, marker, building with blocks. So anything that you can do to help them strengthen the muscles in their fingers, playing with Play-Doh, that'll help them with writing, and letting them practice cutting paper at home, one of my daughter's favorite activities. Uh, and then also working with them, making sure that they can share their first and last name. And sometimes you think that, of course, they know that, but when you ask them, that last name can be tricky. So practicing knowing first and last name, writing their first name, that's something that we look for when they come into kindergarten, and practice right away at the beginning. Starting to know some of the letters in their name is a good place to start with letters also, and making sure that they know the names of their primary caregivers. So all of those help to make them feel confident and ready for kindergarten. The website link there has more information on that as well. All right. So some of the academic skills when our students are coming into kindergarten that that we look for and assess for at the beginning of the year. And again, these are skills that they'll also work on in kindergarten. So if this is something that your child hasn't mastered yet, that's okay. These are just things that you could start to practice this summer, but before they enter kindergarten. So being able to read and write their first name, recognize some letters and sounds, being able to count from 1 to 20. And if they have that, you can work on counting backwards or starting at any number. Making sure they can count a set of objects up to 10. And so you're thinking about making sure they're doing that 1-to-1 matching where they're touching it, and that's 1, and then touching the next item for 2. Naming common 2D shapes is something that you can practice with your incoming kindergartner, looking for shapes in the world all around them. Recognizing their colors. Again, these aren't activities that need to be flashcards or drilled, but just talking about them. You know, when they're getting dressed, do you want to wear the pink dress or the red dress? Do you I like your blue shirt. It matches my blue shirt. So talking about colors with your child, practicing, like we talked about earlier, those fine motor skills with scissors, pencils, crayons, letting them draw, uh, having them listen to a book read aloud. So that could be with a family member, that could be at a story time, but just getting used to listening to that story language. And then being able to answer some questions about the book. So just having a little talk about the book after you read it. What was your favorite part? This was my favorite part. You know, starting to help them understand that we're listening to that story. And then lastly, following 2 to 3 step directions. So these are some things you can practice with your child. You know, pick up your shoes, take them to your room, bring back your coat. Or, right, the multi-step directions can be difficult for students. And so we want to start practicing those skills. All right. So the next part, I'm going to talk about just some things that you can do at home. And then we're going to also talk about on the go that can help with early literacy skills and math skills in a way that feels like play for your child and feels natural and is fun. And the state of Ohio talks about these 5 ways of learning: talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing. Those are all activities that get your child ready to be a student in school and a wonderful person in the world. So talking, just talking with your child as much as you can. It helps with their vocabulary, helps helps them with understanding conversation and taking turns. You can do it at home when you're preparing a meal. You can invite your child to help. This is a good opportunity to talk about names, shapes, colors, textures. It's an opportunity for counting. You can count the cups as you pour it in, or count the teaspoons. And so cooking, talking is a really great way to practice those early literacy and math skills. Singing is, again, another opportunity. These can be songs that you know from growing up. They can be new songs, and they can be made up songs. The sillier, the better, right? Practicing rhyming, practicing playing with language is a fun way to interact with your child. Reading with your child, encouraging them to choose books that they're interested in. Even if a story is something that you think might be too long, just reading a couple pages, you can make up stories looking at the picture. Just an opportunity, again, to work on that language and vocabulary. The cereal box is always a great source of reading too. Fun in the morning to read together and to play. Writing, encouraging your child to pick up that pen and pencil and color, draw, write. You can ask them to write about their drawing. You can write for them about the drawing when they tell you what's in the picture, and that just helps them understand that the words communicate the message. And then playing, dress ups is a fun way. Really giving your child an opportunity to be a storyteller and to practice that language is a fun opportunity. And then when it's time to clean up, having them count the toys as they put them away can help work on math and can help get everything put away. All right. And then on the go, encouraging, again, conversation, building vocabulary, building background knowledge, talking about where you're going, what you're going to do. Count in the car, counting different items that you see. You can count red cars or talk about the shapes that you see. So just really encourage you to have those conversations with your child. Singing in the car, you can keep a list of favorite songs, do sing-alongs, listen for parts of words, syllables, work on rhyming. All of those are these early literacy skills that really set up a child to be a successful reader. And then again, words and numbers are all around us, so pointing out letters that your child knows. You see a B, and that's the same letter that your child's name starts with, showing them that and talking about it. With writing, singing songs that use their fingers to help strengthen those muscles can help prepare them for being a writer. And again, playing games in the car is always fun and a good way to practice. One of my favorites that we play is 20 questions with animals, where we think of an animal and then ask different questions to try to guess that animal. All of those things help your child with critical thinking, words, vocabulary, and questions versus answers. I don't know if you've ever asked a kindergartner if they have a question, but it's most likely not a question. So that's a good place to start. All right. Okay, so Mrs. Alexander is going to jump in here to talk about kindergarten phase-in and the beginning of the year for your kindergartner.
Hi, everybody. I am Missy Alexander, the principal at Liberty ECS. Emily, there have been a couple of questions down below that I have answered. Just for those of you that might have joined us late, we are using more of the questions and answer format as opposed to raising your hand. We're just not able, we can't see all of that. So if you have a question, enter it into that portion and we'll do our best to answer it. And if we don't see it, we'll get it at the end when we're done. So the beginning of the year for our kindergarten friends is a little bit different than for the rest of our students. ECS buildings are kindergarten first and second. Some of us, not all, but some have some preschool classrooms. But for those of us that, those that don't, it looks a little bit different for the kindergarten students than the first and second grade students. So all students will start on a staggered start. So the first day of school will be all kindergarten, first and second grade kiddos with the last name of A to L. I think that's what we're going back to this year. Last year we were M to Z, so I think we're switching back to A to L this year, alternating. And then the second day, the A to L kids will stay home and the M to Z kids come to school, and it's a full day. It's you still do ride the bus, you ride the bus to school, you ride the bus home, you participate in lunch and your specials. It'll be a regular schedule, but it's really nice to have the smaller class sizes, especially for our kindergarten friends. For some of them, it will be their first school experience. And it's a long day. And so it's nice when it's a smaller number of kids so that the teachers can get to know them and also the students can get to know their classmates on a smaller scale before they're all together. And then how kindergarten will go after that is the third day of school. All first and second grade students will go, but kindergarten students, it will just be half of them. So it will be their whole class, but it will only be half of the kindergarten. So if there's 10 kindergarten teachers, 5 of the kindergarten teachers, whole classes will come and the other 5 will stay home that day. And then on the fourth day, they'll flip flop and the 5 that were at home will come and the other 5 that were at school will stay home. So that gives them an opportunity to have 2 teachers in one classroom to help facilitate those beginning of the year routines, structures, expectations, teaching in the cafeteria, walking in the halls, going to the restroom. It's a nice way to kind of gradually start the school year. Then on that 5th day of school, which for next year ends up being the 21st of August, no kindergartners come to school. It'll just be first and second graders. It gives our kindergarten team an opportunity to talk about some of the assessments that they've done with their kids, look at their class lists. Sometimes we have, for whatever reasons, expecting kids and they aren't there, and have they moved? It gives us an opportunity to balance our class lists. So it is possible that some kids will get moved into different rooms after those first few days of school, and it can be for various reasons. But we just want to make sure that everybody's in the place that's just right for them. And we use those first few days of school to kind of monitor that and make some decisions. So again, like I mentioned, we do arrival and dismissal, which for some of our friends, it's a big deal. You're not with mom and dad like you have been in the past on some of those things. And getting them to the bus and hopefully on the right bus and to the right house at the end of the day, which takes a little bit longer initially at the beginning of the year. It gets them an opportunity in that small group setting, like I mentioned, and also doing some of the assessments that and Emily mentioned some of those previously when she was talking, and we'll go through those here again shortly of the different types of assessments. Emily, I don't think it'll let me change the page.
Oh, I got it. Missy,
Thank you.
can you answer 2 questions real quick about phase-in? One of
Yes.
them is about how are students sorted into classrooms? Is there a way to request a preference to be in a class with friends from daycare?
So all of the 6 ECS buildings have what we call a parent input form. If I can only speak about specifically what I've done at Liberty, but I know the other schools do it too. So I don't know exactly the timing for them, but I believe we've all sent at least an initial email to our pre-registered kindergarten families. If you are pre-registered and you haven't received anything from your school, then I would encourage you to reach out to that school because there might be some kind of hiccup with the communication system that you're not getting the emails. But there is a Google form that we have created that allows you to provide us some input. It talks about what classroom environment you think your child would learn best in. It talks about anything special that we need to know about your student. And then it also has this other blanketed kind of question where it just is there anything like, is there someone you do want to place them with that might have been at their preschool that would be a familiar face? Is there a particular situation that you need us to know about that would help us get to know your child? So you are more than welcome to complete that form or even just an email to the principal of the building. When we do our class list for kindergarten, we do use a lot of age appropriateness for that developmentally appropriate piece. And we do try to balance as far as male and female. And honestly, kindergarten, there's not a whole lot of data that we have to put them into class groups. And so that's why we use those days that they come there initially to kind of gather some more information to make sure it is the perfect place for them. So that's kind of that input part.
Great, thanks. And then there's one about when is the first day of school and when will we get an official schedule of which kids will be in on which days for kindergarten?
So the official schedules typically won't come out, and even communication from principals will be more in August. Once all of our registration, which by the way, if you are listening and on this webinar and haven't registered yet, please make sure that you go to the Welcome Center online and register your child. There is an online component, and then they call you, and then you come in with your like proof of residency and all those things that they'll scan and upload for those appointments. But the first day of school is August the 15th, and that would be the day that it will be the A to L families that their kids come to school. And then August 16th, which is a Friday, would be the M to Z families will come, the A to L stay home. And then on that Monday for kindergarten, it's where we were talking about half of the grade level will come. And then the next day is the 20th and half will come. And then the 21st is the day that there are no kindergartners in session. And then the 22nd is the day that all students come. So you'll get that information from your building principals as it gets closer. And that will also be updated on the website. That is consistent across all Lakota schools. The A to L, the M to Z, regardless of what grade level, it's those other half of the grade level, and then not coming on a day and then starting the next day that's specific to kindergarten.
I went ahead to the next slide for you.
Thank you. So the beginning of the year at a glance. So these are some of the things that we would be assessing on those first few days. And please understand it's not the students coming in and sitting at a desk and we give them a piece of paper and a pencil. A lot of this is we have kind of all hands on deck in the kindergarten classrooms those first few days of school. So our reading support teachers, our English as a second language teachers, some of our instructional aides that we have in the building that aren't maybe attached as a classroom teacher to a room will be in the classroom helping the kindergarten teachers. And so it might be just a conversation that the kindergarten teacher has with the students where they're talking about the letters of, and both looking for upper and lowercase identification. The sound identification, it could be, that they show them a letter and ask them what sound it makes. The high frequency words, there is a list that you will get, and I wouldn't worry so much about that. Some of these are skills that obviously we don't expect every student to come into school having, and that's what kindergarten is for, is to kind of teach them those basic foundation skills. So this is just to get a good idea of where they're at so that we know where to go from there. Concepts about print is, do they know what to do with a book? Do they recognize the front cover? Do they know to go when they're reading, going from left to right? Do they turn the pages and things like that? So the concepts about print. And then some of these Emily has talked about already, but rote counting. So can they count to 10? Can they, the one-to-one correspondences, if there's 5 items on the table, do they count them one at a time, pointing and saying 1 and then pointing at the next one and saying 2? And then the number identification is just recognizing the different numbers, and up to 10 is a great place to start. There are some state requirements that we are required to take. The biggest one that they will do some of during those first few days of school is the CRA, which is the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. And it has a lot of the things that we've been talking about, especially if you were to go to that ODE link that Emily was talking about. Those are some of the things that are tested on that. And then the measures of academic progress, we call it MAP. And that is given actually 3 times a year. So they'll take it in the fall, again in the winter, and then again in the spring. It has for kindergarten students that it has a oral part to it where it reads to them. It's all computerized. The kids are they go in and answer the questions, and it is a I know there's a technical term, but basically it adapts to the students' responses. So if a student is a reader in kindergarten, they might level up and have automatically have harder questions. And if a student is not yet quite a reader, then the questions will be at their level. So it helps us to identify that just right level that students are at and where they need the support and instruction in the classroom. And then the first 2 weeks of school are really some of the most important. It's an opportunity for us to build the community, getting to know each other. There's this huge family concept in a early childhood school, and it's learning to build those relationships and helpers throughout the building. The teachers talk about routines and establish those rules and expectations. And those are things that they practice over and over and over and over. And still, sometimes with only a few days of school left, we're still practicing it. So it's things that it's their foundation, not just the academic part, but the social and the kind of the function of the school as well. And then introducing the different materials. Some of our friends come to us and they don't always get an opportunity to use scissors or pencils or markers. And so we talk about the different expectations when you are using those materials. So all of the ECS buildings are from 9:05 to 4 o'clock. Actually, I think it might be 9:10 to 4 o'clock, but 9:05 is when we really kind of start unloading off of the buses. And I think lots of schools have car lines, and that's kind of when their car lines wrap up. And you will get specific information from schools on how those operate because they are different depending on the building that you are attending. But in the classroom each day, of course, there is the things that we all did when we were in school with reading and writing and math and science and social studies. In kindergarten, they work a lot on phonological awareness and phonics. And so learning how letters and sounds work together to make words, and then just your reading and writing, which is your knowledge building of those different things. Some of the things Emily was talking about, where you start talking about the stories that you're reading and the characters, math, and of course, unit studies, which is science and social studies. Play workshop is really a great way for the kids to develop their social interaction, their social language, how to play with others, how to get along, how to compromise. We talk a lot about respect of each other. And so those are those opportunities that are really kind of unstructured but structured so that they can accomplish those and work on those skills. Lunch. So lunch is a really big thing for our kindergarten friends because for a lot of them, it's the first time that they will be independently eating without mom or dad there with them. And so important things that they should know each day is, are they buying lunch or did they pack their lunch? Some students need to go through line and just get milk. And so just making sure that your child is aware of kind of what they're doing at lunchtime. Also, the menus are on the district website, and that helps that as a family, you can sit down and even if it's once a week, once a month, you go through, do you want to buy this day? Do you want to pack this day? All of those pricing and information is on the website, and you will get more specific information from schools as the school year starts in August. One of the bigger things is if your child is a packer, some of our kindergarten friends are pretty picky eaters, and so packing happens a lot. But just make sure that they can open those packages like the Tupperware containers or the Ziploc bags or even a bag of chips. Go-Gurts tend to show up a lot, and those are really hard for them to open. So there are adults in there to assist, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of kiddos in there at one time eating lunch. And so their support from an adult might be slower to come than they're willing to wait. And so if you can help them by packing things that you know they can open, but also helping them develop those skills to be able to open those items as well. Um, our lunch system is that if your child is a packer, you can get on. It's currently called Easy Pay, but I think the name of it is changing. But you can get on and add money to their account. You can set um, boundaries, if that's the right word, on what your child is able to buy. The cafeterias do offer snacks. So I would really encourage kindergarten families, especially, to put limitations on whether your child can or cannot buy snacks. Again, if there is no restriction, then the cafeteria, kind of the school law on nutrition from the child nutrition department is that if they buy it and there's money on their account, then it's theirs to get. And so we do have some friends that once they have money and they know they have money, they might buy 3 or 4 snacks. And so those are things that you will be able to monitor through your child's account once you get that up and running. And that also will come later to the start of the school year. It's called Home Access Center, but you'll be able to access your child's lunch account, even see what they buy each day, how much they're spending. And that is something I would encourage you to do, is to set those limitations, or at least have the conversation with your child about, snacks aren't free as long as you have money, or free if you don't have money, that there is a cost to them and that there are limits on what you would like for them to do. All classes do have recess. That's one of the greatest learning of social
Hey,
interaction that
Missy,
kids have. Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. We have a couple lunch questions I thought
Okay.
I'd throw out
Yeah,
to you to,
perfect. Yeah.
so one was, during lunch, would I be able to come in and help my son at the beginning of the year?
So each school is different on what their lunch visitors are. I know that almost all of us have parent volunteers that we ask for at the beginning of the year just for that purpose, so that adults can be there and there are more of them to help, especially at the beginning of the year. As far as coming to school and having lunch with your child, I know at Liberty we don't allow that because my cafeteria is so tiny that I don't have enough space to have a lot of visitors. And I believe that that's kind of the case in most of the early childhoods, that the lunch visitors are limited, except for those that sign up to volunteer at the beginning of the year.
And one other question about, my child has a peanut and almond allergy. Requested a meeting with the nurse and was wondering when that might happen, and what precautions are taken during lunch uh, with allergies.
So we have lots of allergies, peanuts, tree nuts, even gluten and things like that. So for our peanut and tree nut folks, we have a special table for them, especially if they are extremely sensitive. We have some families that decide it's only if it's ingested, and so they are okay sitting at a table with someone who might have a peanut butter and jelly. But for our friends who need it to be more restrictive, there is a special table. They typically are allowed to pick a friend or two to sit with them, so that because we don't want them to sit alone. Obviously, the teacher would monitor and make sure those students don't have anything that would be harmful to them. And then there is also separate cleaning items that are used on those tables for our, especially our peanut and tree nut friends.
Great. And one last question, is there a vegetarian meal plan?
There is not. Now, there are options that would qualify as vegetarian because, so there is a, when kids go through line, it's not, and again, I'm probably way older than most of the friends on this webinar right now, but when I went to school, you went through line, they put everything that was for the lunch on your tray. You ate what you wanted and threw away what you didn't want. And it's not like that now. When they go through line, they select what they would like. And there are certain items, and the cafeteria staff does help them with this, that they get that make up a lunch. So, but we also have other options too. So like Tuesdays is always chicken nuggets. It's chicken nugget Tuesday, mashed potatoes and gravy, a salad, a fruit. And as they're going through line, they can say yes or no to any of those items. But if you don't want the chicken nuggets, there are also other options. A hamburger, a cheeseburger, a chicken sandwich are available every day, which I know doesn't meet the vegetarian bill, but there are what we call funnables, which are, there is one that is specifically a fruit, a cheese, and a yogurt as an option. So there is not a lot of vegetarian options, but they can also just select items that are vegetarian on the vegetarian menu. But there is not one specifically for vegetarians.
Thank you.
Okay. So every building I didn't talk about specials, Emily, but that's okay. There's two things on
Oh,
there I wanted to talk on the
you want
last
me to
one.
go
That's all
back?
right.
Sorry.
No, I remember them. No, you're fine. So there are 6 specials that the students get in the early childhood school, and they will have 1 special a day. It operates on a 6-day rotation, and we do that by letter, so A through F. And when the school year starts, your teacher will send home information for you on what special your child has on what day, as well as also informing you of A, B, C days and that. So the only thing that really would be necessary for you to know as far as like anything you would need to prepare your child for is obviously on gym day or PE day, they would want them to wear gym shoes. And so you would just need to know what letter day they have gym on. And then on those days, send them in with some tennis shoes. And then the other one, and it was also a question that was up earlier, is the half day. So half day is an option. It is offered in one of the ECS buildings. The last few years, it has been at Wyandotte, and a lot of that is determined by enrollment based on, honestly, if there's a room available at the school because we are all pretty full. And so currently, I believe it's slated to be at Wyandotte. And it is a half a day option. Again, they don't know yet AM or PM, but that is an option that's available if that is something you have registered your child for as well. And that will be offered. It's typically about 2.5 hours. It does not have specials. The students in half day do not have specials or lunch. And it is more of a focus on the curriculum because you're trying to fit a whole day's worth of curriculum into the half day. So it doesn't have as many of those extras like specials and lunch. And they have a recess, but that would be all that would be contained in the half day schedule. So there are lots of key people in our building that help our students and staff every day. One of them is the school counselor. Um, they work alongside the teachers and the parents to just help all students both develop socially and emotionally. And really, if there's anything that comes in the way of helping them to get them to learn, they help with that. So they will go to the classroom and teach whole group lessons. A lot of that is about really what I would consider character development, just being nice, being respectful. What does it mean to be a good friend? And also they do some small group counseling. So they might offer a group session for students who are maybe having trouble with friendships, or maybe somebody's family has recently suffered a loss, or a family situation where there's a divorce or a remarriage. And they help students with that through some small group counseling. They will also do do one-on-one counseling if that's what the child needs and is better suited for one-on-one. They will always consult with parents to help support you at home as well. And the community referrals. So every building in Lakota participates they have a school-based therapy. Um, each school might have, well, not each school, some schools have different partnerships, and that is managed through a company called Mindpeace. They go out and find organizations that are willing to provide with licensed therapists at school, more intensive therapy for students who might need it. And so the counselor can help support that. And then also just school-wide programs that they like to do for community support. So like they do a kindness week, they might do pennies for patients at the holidays, help families that might be in need and need additional help at the holidays. And then as you can see on the picture, we have some ECSs that do have therapy dogs. Not all of them do, but some of them have therapy dogs that are there for the kids and are trained to be in a school setting and working with students that might be struggling socially or emotionally, and they're just there as a therapy dog. So some schools have access to that. We do have some kiddos that have allergies to dogs, and so we are very, very mindful of that in the buildings. And your teacher will know that based on as long as you've included it in like the medical information when you registered. So, another thing that Lakota is fortunate to have is we all have a school resource officer. So, the majority of the school resource officers are retired police officers, and they are currently employed through either Westchester, and I believe Westchesters are not retired. Most of them are still active police officers, but are assigned to a school. And then if you live in Liberty Township, or a school is in Liberty Township, then they're supported through Butler County Sheriff's Office. And the majority of those are retired police officers. And they play a very active role in our building. Of course, our number one priority is they help oversee our safety and security of our buildings. But they are actively engaged every day with our students. They are engaged with staff. They help families. They are always seen and visible, just as an added layer of safety in our buildings. They build relationships with the kids, both interacting with kids that might be making some bad choices, but also those that are right on track too. They're just a very normal part of our school community. And the kids love them, and they'll go into classrooms and do some safety things as well. They will talk about seatbelt safety. They'll talk about stranger danger. And there are lots of things that they do with teachers as far as training goes outside of the school. And so they are responsible for all of that too. So any kind of emergency plan that we have in place, the school resource officer oversees it. He taught, like I said, they talk to the students about what a police officer does, that they're your friend, they're there to help you. And they are just such a huge part of our school community. And so we're really grateful to have them. School nurses. We all have a school nurse too that is there full time. Some of the things that they oversee are daily giving of students medications daily. If you have a child that needs medicine during the school day, there has to be a order from the doctor that is located in the nurse's office, and then you also supply the medication. All medication needs to go through the nurse. Please don't send it with your child in their backpack to school. Everything needs to come in from with the adult. And also, I just remembered I did not answer a question that someone asked about the peanut allergies. Your school nurse will be in touch with you about that meeting too, probably more in August. They're wrapping up this year and kind of transferring students' medical information to the next school. And so for all of our incoming kindergartners, most of those would happen in August, close to the start of the school year. And then also some things that you might not think need a doctor's order to be in schools, and our nurse to give it does need. So, like even something that you might give if a child has a headache and you would normally give them ibuprofen at home, we have to have a doctor's order for that in order for our nurse to give it. Even something as simple as sunscreen is required to have a doctor's order. So, any of those things, if you have questions about, please reach out to your school nurse. And she'd be happy to let you know if she needs an order or if it's something that she's able to even give to your child at school. Immunization requirements. If you are an active visitor of your yearly appointments with your pediatrician or a family doctor, then you're probably A-okay with your immunizations. Typically, they happen at the 5-year visit, and it's things like DTaP, varicella, Hep B, MMR, polio. Those are some of the ones that are the normal vaccines. I know that if there are any religious purposes that would keep you from immunizing, or if there are medical reasons that would keep you from immunizing, there is a waiver form that you can complete. And again, the school nurse can help you with that as well. Of course, the daily bumps and bruises, they play hard. And so we do get some bumps and bruises that happen at school. She also manages the student health plan. So if you have a child that has some specific health needs, maybe diabetic or epilepsy or something along those lines that we would need an emergency plan for or a care plan for, the daily implementation, then she would be the one that would oversee that as well. And also special dietary requirements. There is something that Child Nutrition publishes for the lunches that gives a complete listing of caloric information, ingredients, and things like that. And she helps manage that as well. And there we all are.
Missy, one more right before this. So someone
Yeah.
we left off of the slideshow and should be mentioned, and there's a few questions about our bus drivers.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, that's
we'll need to add that.
so yeah, so all students in grades K2 are provided I think it's K6, but again, sometimes I forget about the 3-6 world, but K2, all of our students are provided transportation. I would strongly encourage you to have your child ride the bus. We do talk about bus safety in school. We have a bus come to school and we have safety. We go through that. We get them on the bus. We talk about how they should act on the bus. Again, the bus is sometimes a hard thing for our K2 kiddos for the same reasons that we talked about with other things. Mom and dad aren't there. There's not a car seat that I'm sitting in. And so sometimes they feel free and want to move about and explore and those kind of things. But we work really hard on making sure they understand the expectations when are on the bus. Of course, bus drivers are not classroom teachers, and they don't have some of that same training that we have, but their most important job is that they get students to and from school safely. And we make sure that we are in a partnership with them. If they are having concerns with behaviors on the bus, then we address that and help support them in that. So again, they're not classroom teachers, but they do receive some training, obviously, on bus safety and bus operation. But sometimes the parts that we have to help them with are more of the interaction with student to student.
Do you mind sharing how parents will find out where their bus stop is, what bus they get on, times that they'll get on the bus?
So again, I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but in August, you will get some information. And I'm not sure of the process. It used to be that they would mail you information on what's called Home Access Center, where you would get information about your child and your child's account. And that's where you will find out. You will log in. If you have other students that are in Lakota, it will automatically link you together so that when you get in, you'll be able to see all your kids in one spot. And that's where you would go to find out really pretty much anything that you would need to know about your child's day at school. So in August, it will list who their teacher is. It will give you bus number and bus times. It will also, that's where you'll go to look for report cards. That's where you'll go to look for test scores. So it is really kind of your hub or your access center for all of the information that you would need. So that won't be available until August. And typically, it is the teacher information will come out a little bit sooner than the bus route information, as you can imagine, with 17,000 kids and trying to get everybody where they need to go and on what bus. It is a little bit of a process. And so it takes them a little bit of time to make sure that it's as perfect as they can get it. And that comes out probably a week or so before school starts.
And then what about early drop off or late pickup options?
So there really aren't any. The teachers for supervision, the teachers have requirements and expectations before the school day starts. I know there are lots of daycare facilities that do what they would consider a latchkey program with before and after school care. And a lot of them do transport, or Lakota buses will pick them up at one of the daycare places. So if that is something that you need, you could find information from those specific daycares as to how they would get kindergartners or students to and from their facility. And then also, I know the Lakota Y offers a latchkey program, and it is typically held at a school. And those are all decided upon towards the start of the year once they see where kids are enrolled from. And so they do a early morning before school, and then they also have after school, and I think it's as early as maybe even 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and then around until 6 in the evening. And so the district would help with the transporting if it was within Lakota on the latchkey program with Lakota, with the Y, I'm sorry. But Lakota itself does not offer anything for before and after school. And in front of you, you see all the principals. We do have one transition that's happening over the summer. Currently, Mrs. Jimenez is the principal at Heritage, and she is leaving Lakota, and Mr. Schneider, who is currently at Endeavor as the assistant principal, will be moving to Heritage as the principal. But that is our ECS principal lineup there in front of you. And if you need to reach out to anybody, most of Lakota's emails are first name dot last name at lakotaonline.com. Some of us have been here for a while, so we were able to use nicknames in our email address, but then others of us, it's our full name. So like for Mrs. Franco at Hopewell, hers is Rebecca and not Becky. So again, each building has their own website on the Lakota online district website that you would be able to access these as well. So that's probably your best resource if you're not sure about an email address or the spelling of someone's name, is to reach out by website and look for the email address. And a lot of times there's even a link to connect you to a contact at those schools. And now I think you might be done listening to me talk and you get to hear Emily again.
Not yet. Not yet. I have another good question for you.
Oh, okay.
Uh, this question is, do ECSs have PTOs? And if so, how do I become involved?
You know, I'm glad you brought that because we do have PTOs and we rely on our PTOs for many, many things. They support our students, they support our staffs, and there are lots of fun family activities that they provide. It is a great fundraiser for our schools for those extras that we always like to provide for our kiddos and our teachers. The best way to join and to be involved is to reach out to your school, and they can put you in contact with either a member of the PTO that might be a first or second grade parent that's been there. There will also be information in weekly newsletters that will give you PTO information. They always have a table and usually some spiritware at open houses where you can sign up to get involved. They will always, always, always take your help. So that's a great way to get involved in your child's school. It helps you to know what's going on because a lot of us, as a parent, my kids are a lot older now, but I'm getting it from my grandkids. When you say, "Hey, what'd you do at school today?" Nothing. And so we all know that we did more than nothing at school. So being on PTO helps you to get a little bit better idea of what's going on at school because we are doing a lot of really great fun things.
And then one more. This question is about the supply list when that comes.
So the supply list is, my understanding is that this year there will be a school fee and each family will be responsible for paying that school fee for their child. And with the payment of that school fee, there will be a supply kit that each child gets that will have some of those necessary basic school supplies. And then, in addition to that, our supply list is very limited that we ask for parents to purchase. It is, I believe it's headphones, a backpack that doesn't have wheels, and there might be a gallon baggie or a quart baggie or a roll of paper towels or a box of tissues, depending on last name, what your last name starts with. All of those things will be emailed to families as we get started a little closer to the start of the school year or even maybe over the summer, but they will be posted both online and you'll receive correspondence from the school in regards to that.
Thank you, Missy.
You're welcome. Thanks everybody for being here.
All right. So the next thing that we're sharing on this slide are different websites and apps that are good family resources that can help you with practicing letters and sounds with your child. Reading Info Ohio is a really great website that is free to all of Ohio schools and families. And the state works to buy different access or different memberships that we can access for free. So that sign-in information is on there for you. And then just some fine motor and counting resources. I did want to answer two questions that came in around family resources. One was about if I was not, well, first of all, we had a question that reminded us all about Safety Village, which is an exciting opportunity that we have available for our families. Um, Missy, are you able to share more about Safety Village?
Um, Not
Sorry to
really.
put you on the spot.
No, you're okay. I know, so it is a safety program that not doesn't just talk about bus safety, but it also talks about pedestrian safety. It talks about stranger danger. It talks about all different things that students could perhaps encounter safety wise as they are starting their school year. The bus is a part that they have, but I know they have the fire department come. They also do these cute little pedal cars that go around a little town, and they practice like what a stop sign means. Where should pedestrians cross the street? How do you know when it's safe to cross the street? And that is it's actually held at Liberty, and there are morning classes and afternoon classes, and they last for a week. And it is a drop-off situation where you bring them, you check them in, then you come back and pick them up. And unfortunately, I did see one of the questions was, is there another thing that you know about that teaches bus safety if you can't attend Safety Village? And unfortunately, I don't know of anything else. But I do know those first few days of school when we are limited, when our class sizes are a little smaller, we do typically have a bus come and talk to them then. Of course, they might have already rode the bus at least once. But the biggest things that I would encourage you to do is when you are in your car, talking about what it's like on the bus. The seats are taller, but their bottom should always be in their seat. Their back should always be against the back of the seat, and their feet should be towards the floor. A lot of times they can't reach the floor, but they should be towards the floor. They talk only to the people in their seat. They're using inside voices when they're talking. Obviously, hands and any other kind of items are inside the bus, no sticking anything out the windows. And those are kind of the strong things that we see the most that they need encouragement and reminders about when they're first learning to ride the bus.
Thank you.
I did have one other
And then,
thing from a question, if you don't mind,
yeah,
Emily.
go ahead.
Sorry, there was someone asking if there were suggestions that what to do for their child who might be exceptionally shy. And my suggestion with that, although sometimes it feels like a punishment or a hard thing to do, but I would really encourage you to put your child in situations where they are meeting new people, and model for them what it's like to meet a new person and to have a conversation, whether it's at the library and approaching someone that might be their age, but how to interact, or even getting them involved in like a gymnastics or a dance or a sports team, just so that they have those opportunities to be put in a situation where they're meeting somebody new, and then you model for them how to do it. I think that's some of the easiest ways that I would encourage you to help your shy child maybe come out of their shell a little bit, find things that they like to do and enroll them in a course or something that would not only be of high interest, but then they get to meet some new people and practice their socialization too. Sorry, Emily.
No, that's perfect. Thank you for the tip. Also on here is a link to a Midpoint Library. That might be a way to start interacting. They have a lot of summer programs. They have reading programs with prizes, but they also have yoga classes for kids and all kinds of different activities where your child would get to meet new people. The Safety Village that we talked about might be an opportunity for your child to spend a little bit of time away from you and get some good learning in, and gives you a little bit of a break. So, right, win-win. And so that is on here. Also, this one that says kindergarten red word list. Those are high frequency words that that your student will practice in kindergarten. So just giving you a heads up on those words. And then the Young Mathematicians is a website that talks a lot about what it really means to be a counter and all of the things that go in to counting, not just knowing the number order, but really understanding quantities. So some good resources. Again, we will share these slides on our website with the recording, so you will be able to access all of the links. And I believe our PR department will also be sending out an email with the resources.
Something else too is I know each individual ECS hosted or created a PowerPoint specific to their school. And so if you were not originally registered as a pre-registered student when those went out, which would have been before the kindergarten info night, an open house that families came to, if you reach out to your school, they can send that to you. I don't believe those are on a website anywhere, but we do have them at each school. So if you reach out to the principal or the offices of whatever school your child will be attending, they can send you that too. It's very similar to what we just presented on the webinar, but there might be some more specific information just for that school. But there are still a lot of unknowns that are being planned over the summer and won't be ready until August, but there might be some specific things on your school's info.
Thanks. And then one last question about, it says Safety Village sign up is not allowing signups. Do we know if it'll reopen? I am
I do
not
not know
sure.
the answer to that. I will
Yeah,
have to, I can check on that for you. I know it's ran by a couple of our school resource officers do that. That's what they do for their summer. And so I will reach out to them and find out for you. And I'm not sure how I would get that information back out. Can I post on here later and look, or how would
yeah, I
I
think
reach out?
we can add that to the website since we talked a lot
Okay.
about it. We'll make sure that that information gets posted as well.
Okay.
Right. Well, it is 7 o'clock. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. Hope you found it helpful. My email is on this slide. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me and I will get back to you. And then again, this is the website here, www.lakotaonline.com, where we will post the presentation and the recording. Thanks again.